So welcome back. Let's talk now about reporting. All throughout this series of presentations, we've talked about the data we want you to gather. Let's look at the reporting forms and how to gather the information and where you can get it. So let me share my screen. Again, poll watcher reporting. So this is the basic early voting shift report form. This is the top of the form. This is the paper form. This part of the form is common to all of the forms. So you'll notice at the top, we're going to ask for your date of shift. What date did you work? Which shift did you work? The opening, the middle, or the closing? Again, this is for early voting. Which satellite did you work in? Your name, your cell number. This is all information. You don't have to fill this out on the paper form, but this is what you'll be asked on the uh, uh, online report form. And then what was the name of the chief and the assistant chief? And then there will be a box that says, did you have an incident? Yes, no. And if you have an incident, you'll get the box will then open on the online form and you can add any information about what happened. So if there was an event that happened, you can describe it here. Or if the DS300 was, that white scanner box was replaced, you can fill in that information about the old box and the new box. So moving on down the first page, this is what we're going to ask for the opening shift. So what's the handwritten number on the front of the DS300? Now, this is probably only going to apply to those of you who go to Fairfax. If you remember from last year, they had a big 1, 2, 3 in front of the machines where the scanners where voters could scan their votes. And as those machines were replaced, those machines were changed to 4, 5, 6, and they ultimately went on all the way up to, I believe, 11 different machines. So if they have a handwritten number, put it there. For most every place else, the machine is only going to be DS200 number 1 and number 2, and you can just ignore the category for the third one. And then it's the simple same information, the red tape seal number, the zip tie seal number, the public protected count, and then what's the accumulative opening poll book count. On the first day, of course, it's 0, but as each day progresses during early voting, that number is going to aggregate. So if today the precinct ended, or excuse me, the satellite ended at 100 votes, tomorrow it should open at 100 votes and it'll close at 100 and something based on how many voters are on the second day. If there's no early voting or opening shift report, then if you have the middle shift, perhaps you can fill in some of this information. And we note up here on every piece of every part of the form where you can find the form. So on the log or on the machine cert form, if you need help. And obviously these handwritten numbers, again, are only for Fairfax, but those will be very obvious over where the machines are. If you have a closing report, again, we're going to ask for the same data as the opening information. Then we're also going to ask you for some information about the voters. So what was the cumulative poll book count? What was the total number of voted ballots on each machine? And if there's a discrepancy, can you find out the answer? How many of the different forms were filled out? So goldenrods, ID confirmation statements, affirmations of ability, how many of each type of provisional, and then additional information about the other things here. Here's how many absentee ballots were collected, how many ballots were removed from the DS300 and placed in boxes. Now, they don't have to count, but you can pretty much get you can figure this out. What was the yesterday ending count? What's today's ending count? And you can assume that that subtraction amount will give you the total number of ballots for today. Were all the machines hibernated when you left? So if you have the closing shift, where all the machines hibernated, where the doors locked. If you're on um, the closing shift on election day, please take a photograph of the results notice form. But during early voting, obviously there will be no results notice. There's no tabulation during early voting. This is again a picture of the daily ballot log, the scanner log. So opening serial and this red seal number and the ballot compartment seal, this EO's initial it, and then the closing same day information and the EO's initial that. This is just the calendar. This was a form from the election, the primary Democratic primary election. These dates will obviously be consistent with the early voting for both the special election and then the November election. There's more places to go for information if you need it. You can look at the chief's date. This is all, again, during early voting. The chief is going to create a daily reconciliation worksheet, and you can find the information that you need for your report form on this daily reconciliation sheet. So you can get the total number of voters checked in, the public-private count, provisional ballots, SDRs, and so on. So this is a screenshot of our online form. If you remember from last year, you're going to sign into the form at fairfaxelectioninfo.com. It'll ask for the date of your shift and the type of shift, or which shift did you work, opening, middle, or closing. And once you click on that dot, that's going to open drop downs below in the form. You'll just scroll down and fill out the form, and pretty much it's going to be a one-for-one match from your shift notes report form. So here's the election day paper report form. This is going to be used for both the special election and the general election, but only for those 9 priority precincts. So there's 4 priority precincts that we have for the special election and the 5 priority precincts that we have during the general. Again, the top of the form is exactly the same as before. Data about you and what shift you worked, and did you see any incidents? Then we scroll on down. If you had the opening shift, you'll fill in this data. Morning and afternoon shifts are likely not going to have any specific data to put in because it will have been collected by the opening shift worker, poll worker. And unless you have an incident to report, there's really little data that you'll need to enter. So it'll be very simple. The closing shift is very much the same. If you have the closing shift, we want the ending data. And then the bottom of that shift, the page 2, is going to ask you about the number of Dropbox ballots. Were there any hand counted? Did any get put in that auxiliary box? Does the number of voters checked in, did that equal with the number of scanned ballots? And if there was a delta, why was that? Did all the voters or all the election officers sign that yellow form on the box? This is election day. And did the officer sign the sealed for the cardboard box for the unused ballots? This on the special election day, this is going to be what the results worksheet likely looks like. The candidates are James Walkinshaw and Stu Whitson, our candidate. So the end of the bottom of the form is just going to ask for how many votes did they receive. And here is where you put the provisional ballot information. And again, we're going to ask you to, for the results notice form that gets put on the precinct door, we're going to ask you to please get a copy of, just make a photo from your phone. The paper report form for the general election will look the same as what I just showed you. The only thing that's different is the results part of the worksheet. We have obviously different candidates, different races being conducted. We've got the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, and the attorney general. So that'll be the only difference between these two forms. Excuse me. Now, if you're a microshifter, we've got a special microshifter report. Again, the top of it, the data about you and any incidents that you had reported to you is the same. But then we're going to ask you for just, again, that point in time, public count, and then the voter count worksheet. What did you find in that? What was the data that, from the last reported time? What was the data that you got from that? And was there any information that you got from your conversation with the greeters? Very simple reporting. It's all direct. It's going to be very easy to do. So we look forward to you being poll watchers and submitting your forms. Thank you. And we'll close out with one more unit.